The Marinade.
There's no O in marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
Standing at the doorway of a brand new scene. Being on the outside is nothing new to me. But I'm still
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 113, and our guest is Michaela Anne. Michaela Anne is a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist based in Nashville, Tennessee. Her fifth full-length record, Oh to Be That Free, was released on June 10th of 2022 on Yep Roc Records, and it is a gorgeous, powerful collection of songs. I am so honored to bring you this conversation, y'all. This may be the most personal and emotional conversation we have recorded on The Marinade. I'm so grateful for Michaela's presence and openness and time. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Michaela Anne. Hi, Michaela. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really looking forward to talking with you. I just kind of want to first just say, how are you doing? It's been a really heavy few days. As we're recording this for folks listening, it's just a few days after Roe v. Wade was overturned on your daughter's first birthday. Before we try to talk process or anything, just how are you?
Oh man. I don't even know. Not great. It's devastating. I knew it was coming and I still was just gut punched. Like I was posting a picture of her on her birthday morning on Instagram, felt very, excited to share like 1 year.
Yeah.
And as soon as I posted it, I got a phone alert of Roe v. Wade is officially overturned. And I just have, it's hard to not feel completely hopeless and helpless and just like you don't know what to do and cannot believe that this is the country that we're living in. And the hits just keep on coming. What this Supreme Court is doing. And it's absolutely horrifying. So, yeah.
Is there anything, this is a question I've just been asking women in my life, and anybody who I can get a chance to talk to, is like, as you're processing all of this, is there anything that the men in your life or men that you see either publicly or, personally are either doing or not doing that they need to sort of correct in order to be good advocates here and to hopefully make a difference and make some change?
I mean, the men in my life, my husband is very active and involved with, he's an example to me of, I look to him when I'm like, what do I do? Because I'll just kind of rage tweet and be angry. And he's like, have you called your representative? Have you called our council members? Have you called, So, he's the first, he's the man in my life that I am with every day. So I see what he's doing. And I see a lot of men in my life progressively feel more like this is their problem too, which it is. I think unfortunately in America, we really kind of think on a personal basis of what, and I'm guilty of this too, of I don't feel touched by things unless they personally impact me. I think we have a challenge of empathy, of understanding that it hurting other people being hurt, negatively affected, we should still care about that and still want to do something about it. And I get so mad when I talk about, well, the different ways that it can impact people. And, others will say, well, but, you'll be able to find a way. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. I remember when Trump was elected here, I was just immediately going down all of the ways that lives were going to negatively be impacted by this, the ripple effect of this moment of the, families and children at the border, all these different ways. And it was like, okay, but your life won't really change. I'm like, okay, if I could just block everything out, sure, I could think that my daily life is okay, but only until it's not.
Yeah.
The men in life who might think, oh, I'm not impacted, it until their partner has an ectopic pregnancy or can't, pass the miscarriage that they're experiencing on their own. There's all these other ways we're trying to say things like, well, victims of rape and incest. A lot of people are like, well, but how many people do you know that actually get pregnant, actually get raped and actually get impregnated by it? Or how many people do you know? Or it's always kind of how we're personally impacted. So I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I think we all just need to care more about stuff that we might not feel the personal impact of. And I really don't know I'm tired of being told to vote, because we are voting and we've gotten Democrats in office. And what is that doing? I don't know.
Yeah. I think on the first point, I think, I grew up in the South in the evangelical church and was indoctrinated to believe that abortion was murder and that the Democrats were evil. And then once I, grew up and got out of that town and got out of the church, I started to recognize like how ridiculous that argument was. But I was still ambivalent for a long time, probably because of the same things that you're just discussing. Is like, I just kind of felt like, well, it's not my thing. It's not my place. And first of all, it's not true, right? Because it impacts the women in my life. It could directly impact my life. And so now I've kind of gotten to a place where I'm trying to be as active as I possibly can, right? I'm going to a protest tonight. Went to a protest when the draft opinion was leaked. I live in a pretty liberal bubble here in Florida, so all my reps are on the good side of this discussion. But that doesn't mean I don't need to continue to do more. On the voting thing, this is something that I've really been trying to hammer home to folks. And like, I get what you're saying, and I understand people's frustrations, but one side, there's only two options here, really. One is saying, I'm going to actively take away your fundamental rights. And the other side is saying, I'm not going to do anything. And I hate that I have to choose the side that says I'm not going to do anything, but I'm definitely going to choose that side, because otherwise the people who are telling you they're going to take away your basic rights are going to continue taking away your basic rights. So it sucks, but I keep beating the drum of let's keep voting. It's not the overall solution, but just like to pump the brakes, on backsliding of democracy. I think we got to keep voting.
Yep. No, I know. And the two-party system is really, it's just not awesome. And all the stuff, our country being further and further divided, I'm at a loss, because I used to preach all the time about like, I don't like using words Democrat and Republicans are this, and I don't like that divisiveness. I grew up in a military family around a lot of conservative people. My family would not be considered conservative at all. But other members in our family are. And I've always thought we need to have respectful discourse, and we need to, be kind to each other and all that stuff. I still believe that, but it's gotten to the point that I'm now more radicalized of, this is insane what the laws that the GOP are passing. Yeah. The idea that banning abortion is saving babies is utterly ridiculous. And they are going to kill more people than save fetuses that they're going to be determined to bring into this world to live what kind of lives? Being born to women who do not want them for whatever reason, that's their business. But I always am just like, if you're, having a 1-year-old, going through pregnancy and childbirth myself and living through the first year of parenting, no one should do this unless they feel absolutely ready, capable, supported financially. Like, it is not an exaggeration when it's like this. Having a child is the hardest thing, the hardest thing. And that's when you deeply want that. So
sorry.
No, I just, I feel like I'm getting emotional, but
I know. I wish I could tell you that I want to take it in a lighter direction, but I don't really, because there's some heavy stuff I want to keep talking about. And if it gets too deep or too heavy, just please tell me and we'll take it in a lighter direction. So I have been ugly crying all morning listening to your record. My father has been in and out of the hospital and a rehabilitation center since early May. He lives about an hour and a half north of me. Thank you. And it's just been fucking hard. Like, it's like every little life task seems so difficult. Driving back and forth, trying to be a supportive for my mom and really struggling, because we have butted heads a lot since 2016. My family has a very conservative family, and fully caught up in the MAGA cult. And it just makes it very difficult. Like, you want to be there for your parents, but at the same time, it's like very difficult to be around them because of some of the things that they say and support. And when I was listening to your record and doing research for this conversation, just thinking about what you must have been going through when you were caring for your mother and making these songs, it just like, I've kind of felt alone. I mean, having a support system, right? Like I have an amazing partner and I'm lucky in that way. But the way that listening to the record this morning made me feel less alone. I just want to say thank you for that. Like it was hard. I mean, I was waterworks this morning, but it was super cathartic too, cause it was like, okay, all right, we're all in this together, right? We're all in this together. Are you good in those crisis situations? Like, that's a lot. And you had a lot on your plate at that time. You're pregnant, your mom's going through it, you're making a record. Are you good at that, at those kind of moments?
I had never had an experience like that. And I haven't, the only loss that I had experienced was my grandparents. And I watched my mom go through a lot of trauma with that, but I didn't have the emotional maturity or awareness to really understand all of that or feel it. So I've watched my mom my whole life be the rock of our family and the calm in the storm. She is incredible in a crisis. She's always, okay, what needs to be done? Let's handle stuff. I need all the information. I have never thought I was that person. I've never thought that I was like my mom. I'm very emotional. I feel like we're gonna cry this whole thing.
Yeah, we probably are gonna be in and out. Sorry, everybody listening, but whatever. They know me. They know it's likely to happen.
I mean, maybe we need more of this in our life of just people showing raw emotion.
Sure.
But I didn't know, but I will say that in that moment I did step up and I have to kind of look at what are the positives about really difficult, challenging times. And you learn a lot about yourself and you learn a lot of things that you had no idea you were capable of. So I remember, I told my husband, I remember standing in the hospital the first morning that I went in. We got the call on Friday afternoon that she had had a stroke. My dad called me and we got in the car and drove 10 hours north to Michigan. And the next morning, I remember standing in the ICU and the nurse coming in and talking to me and telling me all these things about her prognosis and what the next steps were. And I remember standing there thinking, why are you telling me these things? Like, I'm the kid. And I was like, what, who, oh, you should just, and I remember looking at my mom's laying there in the bed, mute, and paralyzed, and looking down at my 5-month pregnant stomach and thinking, wait, you need I should call my dad. You need my dad to come. Like, you need to talk to the adult. And I remember having that moment of like, oh shit, I'm the adult here. Like, I'm the one. And it took me a second. And I remember being like, can you get me a piece of paper and pen? Like, I need to write down. And I just very quickly thought, what would my mom do? What would my mom do? Mm. And I, from that moment on, I went into, then it was a 3-month hospital stay and where I traded with my dad. And then we had our daily journal where we wrote down every single note of information and medication and side effect and, kept track. And so I learned that, yes, I can be very good in a crisis. It's I have moments I fall apart and still do. But I was honestly surprised that I could keep it together and have the conversations with the doctor and be the adult, which that I think that if, I look in my life at 34, I was 34 years old when that happened. And I think that was the moment I grew up.
Wow.
It took me a while and took me being pregnant and this happening to my mom, but yeah.
There's so much I want to talk about with that. I think we're capable of so much more than we realize. And when those moments come, we have to step up. I don't feel like I've handled the last month very well. And I've been meeting with my therapist more often in this month because things were kind of like starting to cruise for me. I was doing pretty good at managing my anxiety and dealing with the things that I deal with. And I was like feeling pretty good about things. And then boom, this huge life thing happens and I got to step up and I feel like I haven't. And she's like, and I'm telling her the things that I'm doing. She's like, no, you're doing great. Like that. And she's not a cheerleader. That's not her style. Like she will hold my feet to the fire if I'm not doing what I need to do. And she will, push me to think through things, but she was like, no, dude, give yourself some grace. Like you're stepping up because we have to in those moments. I'm curious, like, cause the fact that you were in the middle, right, of making your record, if I understand, and when all this happens. And so you just mentioned that you asked for a pen and something to write with. Is that a way that you process those kind of difficult things? Is that like a form of maybe almost creative thinking that you had to do in that moment that helped you?
It's been interesting because I've thought a lot about my creative process through this because I have not been very creative. If I look back on what, when my mom first went into the hospital and had the stroke, I was writing everything down. I was keeping notes of everything that was happening to her through the day of, even like my brother, we had, my dad and my brother and I were trading shifts and at the hospital because of COVID, only one person could be in at a time. So we were also all experiencing this alone. And I was writing down every single detail, like my brother, and we'd leave this journal and to whoever was there to keep logs. And my brother was like, wow, Michaela, you and dad are really intense. You're literally like, mom pooped. Like every single detail. And beyond that, I was also writing down, I have letters that I was writing to my mom those first, those early days. I was journaling everything, like as she was talking. But as life has, I realized, the acute time versus as it becomes more long-term, and life kind of sets in, not to mention adding a baby to the mix and the extreme exhaustion that I'm still experiencing of having a baby. I've less and less been writing, and even like just journals of daily experiences. So, my process has usually been write everything down, and that's how you kind of explore. But then I think this is a new experience for me of just so much that I can't even take the time or have the energy to write it down. And I hope it, I'm praying that it comes back, since this is what I do for a living.
Have you ever read Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But a long time ago.
So I wonder if you don't have a morning pages practice, if that is a viable option. I know, babies require a lot of care in the morning. I get that. I wonder if that might be, just as a suggestion, something that came on the top of my head. I don't know, but if you've read it.
You're right. I haven't read it in like probably 10 years. So
okay.
I need to. And I do think, it's one of those with sustained challenges. One of the negative coping mechanisms though is stuffing, of just, I have to get through daily life. So I don't want to put this to page right now, because I just got to cope.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that I wrote down to ask you about, is like, with a little bit of space, not a ton of space. I mean, that's a heavy moment in life, but with a little space between the moment that you drive those 10 hours and you're there taking care of mom, writing down a journal, which, by the way, thanks for sharing that. That's super helpful just as a practical application. I can't believe I didn't think of that. I'm going to seal that for sure. Mm-hmm. What about you? Like, what have you learned about yourself? You mentioned that you've learned that you can do it, right? You can be the adult when thrust into that moment. Is there any other lessons you've learned about you, about growth, about coping, about how you react? Any of those kinds of bigger picture things that you've learned about you through this whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned that I realize I think I'm a pessimistic eternal optimist, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I'm very
realist, maybe.
Yeah, and I quickly think of the worst case scenario, and I experience it emotionally. I think maybe as a way of like preparing myself, and I'm get really distraught and can't hold back my emotions. But then I have to have just eternal hope still. And that's something I've been proud of to realize about myself, that I have really, really hard days, and I cry a lot and think like, am I allowed to curse in here?
All you fucking want.
I'm like, shit is so fucked up.
Yeah. You already said shit earlier, so it's okay. All good. I think I already said fuck.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know, in my personal life, and then obviously the backdrop of the world, just like, oh, this is so dark. Yeah. But then at the end of the day, I still can find pockets of joy and find, ways that I'm like, that life has to get better. And there's all these like good things that are happening. And there's all these ways, in every aspect of life. I will be determined that my mom is not going to get better, and I will be so distraught. And then I will have immense amount of hope just flood through me, and like be so excited because she went out to lunch for the first time, and all of these different things. Like, it's such a roller coaster, but I think that that's a positive that I've learned about myself, that I'm still able to pull myself out and keep going, and keep making music in a time where the music industry is super fucked. the touring industry, to keep doing this when everything is harder than ever on all levels of my life. That's something, a dedication that I didn't really know that I had. Yeah, I've learned
That's
those
great.
things. And I've learned, I've had so many people say to me, like, I can't believe, what you've done for your family and your mom, dropping everything and dropping, everything in your life and being there for 3 months. And I've kind of thought, I what? What other choice was there?
Yeah.
I have immense guilt that since having my daughter that I haven't been up there more.
Mm.
But trying to balance raising a child and with your partner when we don't really have the means to just go move up there right now. So that kind of stuff that I learned about myself, of just the devotion, that the intense devotion I have to my mother, and the ability to just keep going.
That's great. We've talked a lot about mom, and uh, to dive into the record, "Oh to Be That Free," which is just so beautiful. Again, like I said, it's just such a gorgeous record. And there are a few moments that stood out to me. And one of them was the song Chasing Days.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of talk about upbringing in that song. And I'm just wondering, like, what was your relationship with music and creativity like growing up?
Yeah, music was my way of coping with everything. The first song I ever wrote, I think I was 5 years old, and it was an instrumental piano piece called When Daddy Comes Home. And my dad was out to sea, and it was this like minory sad thing. And I think about it was my way of processing feelings and communicating my feelings. Which my first feelings in life were ones of longing, whether I was longing for where we had just left, or longing for my dad. My family tells stories of me being like 3 years old, standing at the front window, gripping the curtain, saying, daddy please," because
Oh
my,
my
my dad
goodness.
was gone. So I think about that just like that, in a way, the things that you're familiar with often are comforting, even if they're not the best feelings. So I think I've spent my life also creating and being, drawn to feelings of sadness and longing, because that's what I'm accustomed to. So music from the very beginning was my way of processing and emoting, escaping. Um, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
we
no.
literally are gonna cry this
Yep.
whole
We got this. We got this. We got this.
thing.
We're pros. So music was your way of processing that like those difficult things, that
Yeah.
the longing, and for for dad as he's out working, right?
Yeah.
And that's got to be so. Was somebody teaching you? Like, did mom play piano, dad play piano, like grandma, grandpa? Were there records all over the place?
So my family was musical in the sense my dad grew up playing piano, and he had like a couple of songs that were his go-to piano jams. I have an older brother that was always very musical, and he was taking piano lessons and learning. My grandfather played piano. My uncle was a performer on Broadway. He was a dancer, singer, actor who lived in New York.
Oh wow.
So from a young age, it wasn't like my family weren't musicians that were always, putting on music, but my parents always put on records. They had, VH1 on all the time. This was like late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So music was something that was around a lot. And my mom says that she always saw in me from a really young age, when I was a baby, that I would, dance and really be into music. So it wasn't like, the central part of our family life, but it was around. And I learned the joy of music through seeing it through my family, for sure.
Great. Was there a point where you felt like this is the thing I either want or need to do for as my life, as my career?
I didn't I didn't know. And I think I've still continued to always have one foot in, one foot out of a music career. I didn't know artists. My uncle was a performer, but I didn't like know that there was working class musicians. So it took me a long time to realize that I could build a life around this. Um, but I still to this day am always like, should I be doing something else?
It's so
Like,
interesting.
I have friends who are just, they are, committed to being artists in life, that they wake up and they create. And that's just the life that they live. And I think for whatever reason, there's still always this voice in my head that's like, yeah, but it's kind of silly, right? Like,
Mm,
so I have that. And then but then I also have these experiences where I'm like, I play sharing music, and what I get back from that, the emotional connection from the people, the meaning. And then I'm like, no, this is absolutely what I'm intended to do in this life. But I really experience a push pull of, but what about providing for my child? What about
yeah.
being able to take care of my parents? What about making enough money? Like, so I'm very honest that I question everything all the time to an exhaustive point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having a child just makes everything so different. I don't have kids, but it's just so clear to me as I see my friends with kids, like how much of an impact I mean, hell, I make all kinds of decisions for my dogs. I can only imagine if I had a human life that I was having to make decisions that impacted them. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't leave Conundrum alone too long. I got to make sure I get home. I can't
Yeah.
imagine if I had a baby to worry about with that, especially when it comes to creative stuff. Today, for example, and I don't need empathy, everybody, it's fine. But today they were just being rascals, and I was trying to prepare for this, and I had another interview earlier that didn't end up happening, but that I was trying to prepare for, and I was writing a little bit, and I was like, and they were just being rascals, and so I'm running in the other room to break that up. I mean, I can't imagine if you had a little human that like needs you to feed it and all the things that go along with that. So huge shout out to you for
Thank
balancing
you.
that, and doing that work. um
Yeah.
there's a theme that kind of runs through the record, oh to be that free, that's like this kind of coming to an understanding of yourself, this sort of like I think the lyric on Good People is, I want to be a person I'm okay with, I believe is the
Mhm.
lyric, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's such a beautiful aspiration, right? And such a beautiful thing to think about. How much has stopping drinking helped with that or not? And how much has that informed your creative process also?
Yeah. So I've wanted to make sure I clarify, because a lot of the stuff around this record is that I got sober. I'm not sober anymore.
Okay.
But I was sober for a period of time with the intent to change my relationship to alcohol, which I have
Awesome.
done, thankfully. That now I feel comfortable to be able to have a drink or two. But I mean, I not drinking completely changes your brain.
Yeah.
And when I was drinking all the time, I was drinking every single night, not thinking, do I actually want this drink? Like, will this make me feel better? And, then having that buzz, your decision making is different. Your awareness is different. Your level of selfishness or selflessness is very different. Um, so I was making all sorts of decisions that I feel very confident that I can say, if alcohol was not involved in my life, I would have made very different decisions and been on a
Mm,
very different path. So, I think that 100% helped me gain some clarity of what kind of life I want to live. Um, And I still to this day am always, yesterday we had a birthday party for my daughter, and I did have a couple glasses of wine, and I do not feel great today.
Ah,
So, I am like, every time I do add a little bit back in, I'm like, man, life is much clearer and healthier, and I'm able to be the person I want to be for myself and others when I keep it really restricted. So yeah, I believe it plays a large role in my health, mentally and emotionally, and therefore my relationships.
I'm really grateful for you sharing that, because I think sometimes when we have conversations about alcohol, about addiction, about substances in general, so often they are framed as all or nothing. So often
Yeah.
it is framed as like, I am in recovery, and that's legit, obviously,
Mhm.
right? There are lots of folks who need to just completely put it away and never touch it again. And as all throughout my family tree, we've got addicts, and so I have to be hyper aware of my own relationship with alcohol. And I think I can relate a great deal to what you're saying, in that I have to check myself sometimes and reevaluate and go, all right, is this a coping thing? Am I doing this too much? And I've realized, lately, yes, lately, like, I need to take a break, and I'm going to take
Mhm.
a break, because it's like, it sneaks up on you. It sneaks up
Mhm.
on you. It becomes a thing that you're just doing because you do it, instead of something that is in some way going to enhance the situation. And so often it's not enhancing, it's actually taking
Mhm.
away. There are times when I feel like it does enhance the situation. And those are the times that I need, if I'm going to do it, I should do it in that time. But I like the idea of thinking of it as like, for some folks, and I think I'm one of those folks, I just need to take a break every once in a while. I need to reevaluate things. I need to constantly be thinking about my relationship with alcohol, and then revisiting it and making sure that it does not become a problem. And if it does become a problem, then I need to quit,
Yeah.
and then I need to acknowledge that. So I'm grateful that you shared that.
Yeah. I think, moderation is really important. And yeah, I decided I didn't want to just completely cut it out of my life. But definitely having the ability to be like, okay, it's a sunny afternoon party. Like, I automatically, the things that would just be kind of automatic, and
Yeah.
then wanting to have a more conscious relationship of like, well, wait, why am I doing this? Do I
Mhm.
really want this? If someone, and as a musician, being on tour all the time, man, it's so tough of like, oh, you get free drinks every night. Oh, you're not getting paid that much, but you get free drinks. And you're not even thinking about it. Before you know it, you're getting, buzzed or drunk every single night. And then you feel awful the next day. And then the way to feel better is hair of the dog. Let's just have a little bit more. And
Mhm.
then it's just a cycle. And you're like, what am I doing to my body and myself without being conscious of what my intention is?
So much of live music in general, like, I mean, the bars want to sell booze, right? That's how they're making their money. And the fact that we've gotten into as a society, like, I go to a show, I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And the shows where I don't, it's not like I have any less of an experience. Oftentimes it's better, because I remember everything, and I'm clear headed through it, and I'm more in tune with the music. It's not like
Mhm.
alcohol is not something that like enhances your experience with. It's not like mushrooms or something, it's not, it's not going to enhance your experience in listening to that music. If I'm clear headed, I'm having a real good experience. Some of my
Yeah.
favorite shows are ones where I didn't drink at all. And I'm like, I have such vivid memories of those, even 10, 12, 13 years ago,
Mhm.
and down to the set list,
Yeah.
whereas if you're drinking, not so much,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Um, the when you were putting the record together, was your approach? Because I was listening to your whole discography, and there are certainly commonalities between your records. With this one, it feels, I hate to overuse the word lush, but there's like a little, to me, there's a lushness. I wish I had a better word. Us music journalists love saying lush, but there is that kind of stands out to me as a listener. Is that something that you noticed too, or was that intentional?
Yeah, that was definitely intentional. I kind of, Desert Dove, there were some songs, there was a intentional shift of sound, kind of away from the like more honky tonk inspired country stuff.
Right.
And songs on Desert Dove, like One Heart and Somebody New and By Our Design, really had that lushness. And I kind of wanted to take that a step further for this record. So Aaron Schaefer Hayes, who produced this record, he knew all of that. And that was a really intentional conversation. And he built the production and the tracks with that in mind, for sure.
That's great. Are you aware of that during the writing process itself, or did you have kind of the bare bones of these songs and then go, here's what I want from these?
I wasn't aware. There's some songs that I can kind of hear the production when I'm writing. Does It Ever Break Your Heart was one of them. The kind of, on that song at the end, there's this like layered vocal part where there's these different vocal parts kind of going over each other, and it feels almost like, to me, it sonically feels like a tornado or something is brewing. And that was when I wrote the song. I heard all of that in my head as I was writing the vocal line when the song first was written, which that doesn't always happen. So every song is different, where sometimes I can think like, oh, this is going to be a really big produced song, or I have no idea until it comes time to record. And we might, Chasing Days was one of those songs that we didn't really know what to do with at first. And it was like, do we just make this kind of your typical kind of alt country rock song, or do we try and do something a little different? So it was a little challenging, but I'm happy with where we got to with that one.
That's super interesting, because I do you think that there is a difference in, say, your mindset at the time the song is being written that either leads to you kind of knowing the direction it's going to go, or hearing what it might sound like, versus not having as clear of an idea of what the finished product looks like? Is there maybe a difference in process in the writing of those songs?
I don't know. I honestly, I think sometimes it's just like what I might be hearing in my head when I'm writing it, but I don't know if it really changes the actual process of writing. For instance, like Good People, when I was writing that, I wrote that with my friend Maddie, and I remember just really kind of focusing on the lyrics and the chords. But then, like I'm Only Human, similar writing process, but we talked about at the time, like, oh yeah, this should be big. Like this chorus should sound like really big and kind of have this like Roy Orbison vibe. So I think it's just like the song, it presents itself as the song is coming out.
Okay. This has been such a pleasure, tears and all. I'm so grateful for you being so open and for giving us so much of your time and energy. We usually end on a lighter note, which is the art that has you inspired at the moment. So we'll finally get light.
Okay.
So it could be a song you've heard recently, or a record you've been spinning, or a film, or a book, painting.
Oh, this feels tough.
Yeah. One of these days, I'm actually going to give publicists a heads up about it, but I haven't.
That's okay. Let me think. What have I been watching or listening to lately? I did listen to the Angel Olsen record recently, and have been loving that. What else?
What do you listen to when you're just sort of like, you're turning something on to chill or whatever? What kind of stuff do you like to listen to?
Yeah, at home, I listen to a lot of, we have a big vinyl record collection.
Nice.
So, and especially having a little daughter now, we like to introduce her to a lot of, the classics. So like yesterday I had an Ella Fitzgerald record on, which I love and holds a lot of memories for me because I went to a jazz conservatory. So I was learning a lot of those songs. So, I'll put some of that on. I have an Oscar Peterson record that I really love. I love putting on the Beatles, Neil Young, Linda Ronstadt. I put on a trio record the other day. Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt and Dolly Parton.
Mm.
And the first song started and there's this little mandolin part. And my daughter looked at me like, like so excited. Like, what is that?
That has to be mind blowing. Yeah, I don't think about that because I'm not around little kids. I'm around like adolescent kids a lot because I teach middle school. But the little kids are, she's getting experience mandolin for the first time. That's fucking dope.
Yeah. And seeing it on her face is just incredible. Like just when she looks at you like, and like she really likes to look in your eyes. And if you're not looking at her, she'll like get in your face to like look in your eyes. And it's amazing. So we revisiting a lot of older music that we love and introducing it to her is really exciting. So we're doing a lot of that these days.
That's super fun. Well, thanks again so much for your time, Michaela. Thank you for your energy and for that beautiful record of yours. And I hope you have as good of a day as we can all have right now. I hope you get through it for the rest of the day. But it's been really, really helpful for me just to bounce ideas and talk about things. And I want to once again just say thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your vulnerability and your empathy. And I'll be thinking of your dad and your family as well.
I appreciate that. All right. Let's talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Michaela Anne, y'all. Thank you so much, Michaela. Thank all of you for listening. I appreciate you so much. MichaelaAnne.com for all things Michaela Anne. The song you are hearing in this episode is Chasing Days from her record Oh to Be That Free. It is outstanding. I want to thank Yep Roc Records for making it possible for us to use that song in this episode. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade, including written pieces, photography, our online store, and more. Give us a follow on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We've been having a lot of fun over there. I've been trying to add a little bit more of a personal touch to our socials, and it's been really fun. It has not felt like a chore the way social media often can. It has felt like a fun way to interact and a way to connect with people. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support the Marinade. If you really like what we're doing, please consider joining our Patreon community, where for just a few bucks a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life and provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. I also post What I'm Getting Down On, which is an examination of the art that is inspiring me at the moment. Sometimes we get together for Patreon happy hours, patreon.com/Marinade Podcast if you can swing it and want to connect a little more deeply with the show. If you want to support us financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription like Patreon, you can Venmo or PayPal us. Just search the Marinade. And if you just want to tip us because you like a particular episode, we greatly appreciate it. All the money goes right back into making the show. And right now, that means saving up to cover some festivals, including Philly Folk Fest next month. And my dear friend and collaborator, Jen Ross, will be with me, and there's just an amazing lineup. So we're really excited about that. We're grateful to have been invited to cover that festival, and I'm going to reach out to some really incredible artists and see who we can get on the show. Check out our new weekly title playlist, Marinade Musings, which you can find on our social media pages and by typing Marinade Musings into the title search. Title has a free tier now, so if you were holding back from using it because of the paywall, fret no more. Marinade Musings is just a short list of songs that I'm finding interesting, just things I'm letting marinate. Thank y'all again for listening. Thank you so much for supporting this thing. Michaela Anne and I got pretty pretty emotional during this episode. I appreciate that we have such a supportive community of listeners who, who I feel comfortable being vulnerable to and open to. And so I'm just really thankful for each and every one of you who listens to the show. And until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.